Welcome back to another Post-Media Ottawa Senators Panel. I'm Bruce Garrioch with Ken Warren in Ottawa, and we're pleased to be joined by special guest, NHL analyst and former Hockey Night in Canada producer John Shannon. And John, it's good to see you here today. As we sit down, the Senators have won 4 of their last 6 games. Do you feel like they've righted the ship here after a very difficult start?
I do. But I quite frankly, I think it's one simple thing. We all knew the kids were going to play the game well, but the veterans have started to pull their weight, and more importantly, Matt Murray has decided that he's a #1 goaltender. And when you can give any team the goaltending that Murray and Hogberg, for that matter, when he's played the last couple of times, when you can give quality goaltending, you give your team a chance to win. And with those young guys that are on this roster, you're in every game. And there's tons of energy and tons of ability. So I do think they've righted the ship as long as their goaltending's quality.
Well, Ken, building on that, the victory over Montreal, the 5-4 shootout victory, Matt Murray let in a couple of goals. He probably went back. But in the end, he made some big saves. And they also got a pretty good goaltender interference call as well. But, Matt Murray did step up when he was needed.
Yeah, that was an interesting game because Carey Price on the other side of it, right? He made some big saves, but let in some soft goals too. It was a funny game that way, and in the sense that the tides turned a little bit on some weak goals both ways. But I agree, Matt Murray's been a lot better. He has made big saves at big times for this team. Early on, he did not. And, that the steamroll where there's a fragile confidence with young players, that hasn't happened, in the last little stretch. Maybe the Toronto game, they lost 7-3. But other than that, they've been in these games, and the kids seem to get more positive and more energy. And I agree with you, John. I think it's the right veterans who have found their place in this team. Some of the, we saw Paquette get traded out, and it just didn't work for him. Braden Coburn's been a stopgap here, but they have the right gaps. Goodbranson, for instance, is now playing with Brandstrom, and that looks like a fairly decent pairing. So I think that's part of it is they finally found a way to mesh the right veterans with the kids.
Guys, before we finish the goaltending discussion, you don't necessarily have to make all the saves, but you have to make the right saves. And dare I remind you that Tyler Toffoli was 20 feet behind any Senators defenseman in overtime, and Matt Murray bailed them out. I've been around a long time, and it's not necessarily the shutouts. It's those saves when the game's tied, even at 5-5 or 6-6, or in my day in Edmonton 7-7, that the goalie makes the save, and that's what Matt Murray's been doing.
Well, picking up on that, a guy who was an absolute beast for this team was Brady Tkachuk in that game against the Habs. 2 goals. I think he had 7 shots on net. He had a couple of teeth cracked from a high stick. He got in a fight. There's going to be a discussion in the offseason, Kenny, about the captaincy of this team. And generally, it's going to come down to Thomas Chabot or Brady Tkachuk. Who do you guys think, and let's start with you, Ken, should wear the C?
Well, first of all, who says old school hockey is dead? There's Brady Tkachuk bleeding all over his face, fights, goals, charging to the net. Old school style hockey, which people think it's all speed and kids, and there's another element to it. I think that Brady Tkachuk is making a hell of a case to be the guy. Now there is a discussion that has to be made with the contract too. That's a big thing that's going to happen with this team, whether it's now or in 2 months or in the summer. That is really going to have to happen to keep Tkachuk here. But I think if it was me picking, I'd pick Tkachuk. I just think he's got the, Chabot's a great player, does all the things he should do in offensively on defense. But I just think Tkachuk is, as DJ Smith constantly says, he drags the team into battle. And I think that's what you need from a captain.
I have to laugh when you talked about old-time hockey again. Any guy named Tkachuk is old-time hockey, which Senators fans are going to notice for the next 3 games as well when it's brother versus brother. I'm one of those guys. I'm an outsider when it comes to who should be a captain, because I don't think anybody's ready to be a captain. I think we anoint captains far too young. I think that to Ken's point about the contract, let's wait. Let's take our time. Let's let these guys mature a little bit more. There was no need in Edmonton to make Connor McDavid the captain when they did, other than optics. I mean, these guys play the game because they love the game and they're good at the game. It doesn't matter if they have a C on their sweater or not. So I'm one of those guys. If you want Shabbat, you want Tkachuk, I'm going to say neither, because I don't think you need a captain just yet. Give them both A's, keep them both happy, make them both leaders, and let's just wait and see.
Do you think, John, that perhaps the leadership should come from the group, and that's why they haven't had a captain for 3 years. There's no pressure to name a captain, but this is going to be a discussion in the offseason because that's what we do.
Sure. Oh, no. Well, you guys need to fill all these pages in the newspaper. I know. I respect that. And we have to fill podcasts. I respect that too. I always hearken back to one of the greatest teams of all time that had one of the greatest players of all time, and that was the 1970 Boston Bruins. They had 4 A's. They never had a captain. They won the Stanley Cup. They had Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr on that team. And I know that there's a whole generation of saying you have to Google who Phil Esposito is and Google who Bobby Orr is. But they didn't have a captain. They led as a group. And I think that that's really something that more hockey teams should be doing, because you can spread the wealth. You can create leadership any which way, and you don't need a C on your sweater just to prove it. You're not going to get any more money for it. You're going to be a part of a team. You're not going to play 60 minutes. You're going to play 22 or 23 at the most. Just, hey, listen, give them all A's, and let's get on with life.
Another guy who leads his team, and John mentioned, I think they play in 5 of the next 6 games. Ken, I mean the numbers off, but Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk will face off here. Always entertaining. The Tkachuks just bring something to the table that not many players do. They are the ultimate, to me, in power forwards, Ken.
Well, it's really interesting. We talk about Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk versus Montreal, and the rivalry, which seems to have peaked a little bit, last year and a bit more this year with Edmonton and Calgary with Matthew. Like, these guys are raising, American kids raising the temperature in these Canadian battles. It's fantastic. It's 5 of 6 times against each other. I'm going to wonder how much they can do against each other. It's going to be fun to watch. We've seen it limited in Brady's first 2 seasons in the league. We'll see how these head-to-head battles go. But I like to see Matthew's offensive touch as well. There's a little bit more, I think, there than. Well, Brady's coming off a 2-goal game, so maybe I shouldn't say that. But I just love watching these 2 guys individually, what they can do to change temperatures in games.
What the other thing that I would measure in this, Bruce and Ken, is there are teams that passed on both these guys in the draft. There are teams that said, we think Jesse Puljujarvi's better, or Pierre-Luc Dubois is better. We think that Kotkaniemi's better. Boy, oh boy, oh boy! I know hindsight is 20/20, but there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people along the way that said, you know what, you're going to win with a Tkachuk. And those managers that didn't pick them, I think they've got to be looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, what did we do that for?
As we get ready to wrap up here, there was a couple other guys I wanted to discuss, and that was Josh Norris and Tim Stützle. And they both guys scored on their first shootout attempts of their career against, you can argue about the way Carey Price is playing, but he's still Carey Price. And John, what does that say to you about the poise of these 2 young men?
Well, I think what we talked about off the top is the kids are all right. I mean, this is a young group of guys who can, in the modern day, in 2021, who can shoot the puck and shoot the lights out of the puck, and their accuracy is. They've been playing with composite sticks their whole lives. They haven't ever used a wood stick once in their time, and they actually know how to use these tools really, really well. Stützle, to me, is amazing, and what Norris showed last night with his composure in the shootout too showed me that, man, oh man, these guys they're gonna be fun to watch for years to come.
Kenny, I think if you talk to anybody in the Ottawa organization, they would tell you that Josh Norris is probably better than they thought he would be. I mean, I think he's emerged as this team's number 1 center during this season. And the other thing I was thinking is, look, neither of them are going to win it, but not since Yashin and Daig have the Senators had two names who are in the mix for the Calder Trophy.
That's what happens with rebuilding, right? You got a chance to play kids and play them a lot. I mean, I just did the stats. The last 2 games, the Senators have scored 7 goals. All 7 goals have been scored by players 22 or under. 13 points combined for players 22 and under in those 7 goals. And that doesn't even include the shootout goals. So this is the benefits of having the rebuild, letting these guys go. And they are making mistakes. Stützle's a little out of control sometimes in terms of trying to do it. He's out of position or whatever. But man, oh man, is he dynamic. And I agree with you. Josh Norris has been given this opportunity. And he said, hey, why let somebody else take it if it's there for me? And I think he stepped into that role and keeps getting better. Look at his face-off numbers. This guy keeps finding ways to improve his game.
Well, we'll see where the Tkachuk face-off goes in the next week. Thanks to John Shannon for joining us. For Post Media in Ottawa with Ken Warren, I'm Bruce Garrioch.